Hey guys, what is up? It's Sonicgott. Long time no see, hey? Sometimes you just need to take a break, and video editing has just been kind of a drag. Especially when you're drowning in debt and you can't afford to get a new computer and all you have is an iPhone. That being said, why not we just talk about movies? I saw Avengers Endgame. And from this point onward, I will be spoiling the movie. So if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, I highly recommend that you do first before you listen to me or any other spoiler that exists on YouTube or any other form of media on the internet. So please don't spoil yourself. This is your last chance. Got it? Spoilers. On we go. Now, I liked the movie Endgame. I thought it was good, but not great. And there's a couple of reasons why. But let's start off with the positive. The cinematics, the color, the story, the emotion, everything that the movie had to offer in terms of what those things are was magnificent. It started off basically with, Clint with Hawkeye teaching his daughter how to do, bow and arrow and shoot in the tree. And then we recollect what happened from Avengers Infinity War, that Thanos had snapped his fingers and took the Infinity Gauntlet and wiped out half of all living beings in the universe. And then Clint's family vanishes right before his eyes. Now, if that were me and my family or friends just suddenly disappeared from the earth without any explanation as to why, I would go insane. And that's exactly what happened to his character. So then we go to Avengers headquarters. Now, I'll say this, I might remember a few things out of order, and if so, I do apologize. So we go to the Avengers headquarters, and they're talking amongst themselves, what's going on, hey, what can we do, we should go find Thanos, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, here's Captain Marvel that shows up. And why does she look so young? It has to do with the amount of traveling that she does through outer space. Maybe she bends space-time or whatever because of her powers, so that's why she stays so young since, we've known her from the 70s, which is where her movie was based off of. So apparently she didn't age at all because the amount of time that she takes to travel through outer space, she can do it very quickly. So from her perspective, her understanding of time goes much more slowly than our perspective from her. Does that make sense? I don't know. Physics is hard. So she says they're going to go after Thanos and they're going to win this time because they have her on her side. And then here comes Thor, stands up right next to her, and somehow summons his mighty axe Stormbreaker Shunk. And she barely moves a muscle, and then she looks down at the axe as if she was impressed by this giant thing. So Thor's like, I like this woman, or something like that. I like her. I love Thor. He's just amazing. Chris Hemsworth, you're an amazing actor. Actually, you're all amazing actors in that movie. Every single one of you. So they go and do this thing, and they travel to where Thanos is hiding because they found out how to get to him. I'm going to forget some character names in the movie because I'm currently thinking at the moment, which is not something I like to do. So, yeah, they find out where Thanos is at, and they see that he is retreated to his farm, and he's crippled, almost. So apparently after the snap, the Infinity Stones, when combined, generate a supreme amount of energy that affects the entire universe, and those who wield them can get severely hurt or even killed. Thanos, being a Titan, is strong enough to wield the Infinity Stones and not die as a result of using them. But it did leave him crippled. But we find out eventually that he used the Infinity Stones to destroy the Infinity Stones. They are poof, they've gone bye-bye, and it nearly killed him. And a lot of them were upset about this because they wanted to get the Infinity Stones so they could snap everybody back into the universe, and now they're completely gone. What the hell? So Thor goes on this rage fit, and he chops off Thanos' head, and that's after they chop off his arm. And Thor's like, I went for the head this time. And they're like, well, what did you do? Now we don't know what to do, blah, 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 blah. And they feel like that they're completely out of options and scenes and things like that. And they cut to 5 years later, where people have now come to accept the fact that half of the universe's living creatures are gone. And yes, it wasn't just humanoids. It was all living creatures. It could have been every single blade of grass. It could have been every single bacteria, particle, or whatever living thing, cat, dog, you name it. Half of it is just mysteriously gone. Because Thanos somehow thought that killing half of the universe would allow the rest of the resources to recumulate, and we can do this. But all Thanos really did is just piss a lot of people off and depress everybody else. Well, 5 years in the future, they're trying to go out and do their thing, and Black Widow finds Clint, and they go out and try to figure out what's going on, and everybody else figures out what's going on, and then they go and travel out into the distance, and they go into Norway, where they find New Asgard, where Thor has taken refuge. And poor Thor, well, they call him the Lebowski, whoever remembers the Big Lebowski. Thor basically sat into a sea of depression because his tremendous strength, his always thinking that he was the strongest Avenger, has completely failed in his task in stopping Thor from doing the snap to begin with. And he feels like he's a failure, so he's basically receded into doing nothing with his life except playing Fortnite and drinking heavily and gaining tons of weight. And so he's got the scraggly long hair and huge beard, and he's got a gut like bigger than my gut. That poor guy. And everybody just feels terrible. I'm listening to all the people's awe in the movie theaters because they wonder what the hell happened to Thor. He got depressed. So, kind of jumping forward into the movie, they figure out how to retrieve the Infinity Stones because of a certain scene involving Ant-Man, who in the last movie that he was in the post-credit scene, Ant-Man somehow got stuck in the device that got him into the quantum realm. And the quantum realm allows Ant-Man to shrink down to a near infinitesimal size and interact with quantum particles that interact with the rest of the universe. And the whole space-time theory within the quantum realm completely gets skewed. And of all things that happen in 14,605 possibilities, a rat gets into the storage facility where this quantum mechanical machine gets reactivated by the rat stepping on just the right button, releasing Ant-Man from the quantum realm. And I'm like, what? A rat pretty much sets this whole story off as just amusing and somehow disheartening at the same time. I don't know what to think. So I can't think of Ant-Man's real name, but I'm just going to call him Ant-Man because I can't remember anything right now. He somehow escapes the storage facility and goes out into the real world to find out 5 years have passed. How does that happen? How does 5 years pass? And I've only been stuck in the quantum realm for 5 hours. Because apparently inside the quantum realm, the whole thing becomes paradoxical and that space-time gets misconstrued. So space-time outside of the quantum realm passes much more quickly than space-time within the quantum realm. And so he's trying to find his way home. Scott Lang, that's the character's name. And then once he's at home, he realizes his whole house is covered in weeds, and then he all of a sudden realizes that half of the universe has been snapped away by Thanos, and then he finds this memorial site where he finds all these names of the people who have been vanished. People who just mysteriously disappeared and wondering why, what's going on. So Scott ends up at the Avengers facility where he's knocking on the door, ringing the doorbell, and then Black Widow and Captain America are looking outside, and they're like, is that a recording? No, that's a live feed. That's actually him. I thought he was snapped away. And they rescue him, they bring him inside, and they finally realize that the quantum realm is a possibility for them to go back in time and change everything, but they're not quite sure how to do it. So they inquire two of the most intelligent minds within the Avengers community, and that would be Bruce Banner, who says that his knowledge, he doesn't know anything about time travel, but he's a smart person, so they recruit him anyway. And then they try to go find Tony Stark, Iron Man, and they find out that he's living out his life. He's accepted the reality that half of the universe has been snapped away by Thanos, so he tried to build himself a new life, marrying Pepper Potts and having a daughter named Morgan, who is just a sweetheart, just a cute little girl. I love that actor. And so they try to talk to Tony and say, hey, we need your help in trying to fix this mess, and we think that time travel is possible. And he's like, no way, man. I got my life back in order. I've got a wife, I've got a kid, I've got my family, and I don't want to lose any of that just for this. And they're like, okay, well, we'll try to do this without you then. They go off in their own way, and then all of a sudden Tony Stark's like, I have an idea. Wait, what's going on? So he's using all of his futuristic equipment to figure out what's going on, and he says, oh, wow, this time travel thing could actually work. It's possible. Let's do this, but we're going to need pen particles that Scott Lang or Ant-Man has. And they go back to the facility. They figure out, oh, this is how time travel works. But they're going through the rules of time travel very, very specifically. Because certain things about time travel work in this universe, and certain things about time travel do not work. And apparently in the realm of quantum physics is time travel possible. And that sunlight is bothering me. It's sunset out here, so... once they figure out how the time travel works, that they could jump back to a certain period of time to gather the time stones. Infinity stones, Time stone is one of those. So they create this machine, they figure out how time travel works. And by the way, I'm just going to jump back a little bit. Apparently Bruce Banner has found his way of fusing his brain with the might of the Hulk, so he's like this halfway in between Bruce Banner and Hulk. I take it or leave it, I guess. It's cool, but it's also kind of weird. I felt like we were just kind of thrown into the situation of a mixture of Bruce Banner and Hulk. So anyway, fast forward, back to the time travel thing. They know exactly what point in space-time where they could get all the Infinity Stones with the least amount of effort possible. So, and they find that 3 of those Infinity Stones are back on Earth, so they send them back to that period of time, and blah, blah, blah. And everybody kind of goes and does their own thing. Except some things don't work out quite right. So apparently Captain America and Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, they go back to the war in 2012 where 3 of the Infinity Stones are there. And Bruce Banner gets to talk to the Ancient One. And then they get into a little back and forth squabble about, well, if the time stone is ripped away from the rest of the Infinity Stones, you could cause some interspatial issues where time could get skewed and distorted, and you'll be off in your own path in your own length of time. And Bruce Banner's like, well, no, but if we return the Infinity Stones to this exact point in time after we use them, then the timeline can be prepared and all will proceed as normal, blah, 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 science, maybe a little fiction here and there, plot, armor, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. So they recover the stones, but Loki manages to get away, and then they have to go back even further in time. So Captain America and Iron Man go back further in time into the 70s, where they try to go get the Tesseract. And then Tony Stark manages to come across his father, Howard Stark, and then an interesting conversation begins, because Tony Stark and Howard Stark, father and son, they never really got along with each other. So this is a way to kind of patch their differences, even though Howard Stark doesn't know who Tony Stark is. Tony Stark makes up his own fake name, Howard Potts or whatever, just to hide the fact that, oh, I'm related to you, but I'm actually time traveling, but I'm really doing this. Anyway, aside from another scene earlier, I'm jumping through the movie back and forth here because I'm remembering things out of order. Captain America gets into the elevator with the rest of the Hydra agents, and he's trying to think of a clever way of getting the Tesseract from them. And then he's like, Hail Hydra, which is a nod to that really controversial comic that they had. It was funny as hell. And then Cap gets in a fight with himself, and that's eventually, that all got screwed up because Loki ran away, and then they went back further in time to get the Tesseract in the military base back in the 70s, blah, blah, blah. So there's that thing happening. They eventually succeed with their mission, barely. So Bruce Banner gets the Time Stone, and then they cut to Vormir, where Black Hawk, and I'm getting names mixed up. Hawkeye, Black Widow. Wow, I'm tired. God, I screwed that up so bad. I'm not going to edit this video so you realize I'm a human being behind this. All right, I apologize. So they're on Vormir. They realize that the only way they're going to get the Soul Stone is to sacrifice something that they love. So they have to make this difficult decision. Someone's got to die. So Hawkeye and Black Widow, they get into a fight with each other. And eventually, as good of a skilled fighter as they both are, Black Widow eventually wins out, and she sacrifices herself, and Hawkeye retrieves the Soul Stone. Now, the rules of the Infinity Stones is that you shouldn't be able to hold them because of the sheer immense amount of power that they have. But I guess for some reason, they decided that one who was worthy to retrieve the Soul Stone would not be affected by its energy from the sacrifice that they had to make. And the emotion starts, and he didn't want to lose Black Widow. And finally they retreat back to the present where they have all the Infinity Stones, and they realize that Black Widow didn't come back, and everything else got screwed up. I can't think of the name of the other character, the robotic lady. Why is her name leaving me? Gamora's sister. Apparently traveling back into the past to retrieve the Space Stone, knocking out Peter Quill to get the Space Stone. Her memory, her Wi-Fi, as it were, somehow interacted with the other of her back in the past, and the Thanos from that period of time figured out their plan to retrieve the Infinity Stones by using time travel. The name of that character is going to come back to me, and I'm going to remember it after I finish this recording. I'm going to feel incredibly stupid, so whatever. So they get back to the present. They realized, oh, hey, now Thanos knows about our mission, and then they have to proceed anyway with caution. So they construct their own Infinity Gauntlet, and they asked, which of the group has to snap everybody who's been snapped away from the universe to bring them back into the universe, because these Infinity Stones, they're seriously, ultimately powerful. They affect all corners of the universe. Every single particle, everything, just with a mere thought. And to be able to wield all these stones at once, they agreed that Bruce Banner, the Hulk, was to snap everybody back in the universe, because as he, had been exposed to gamma radiation, his body is strong enough to receive all the gamma radiation that these Infinity Stones are apparently giving off. Gee, I wonder how the radiation from those things work. That's just insane. So Bruce Banner, he puts on the gauntlet, and then the energy of the Infinity Stones surges through his arms, and he's feeling an immense amount of pain from just holding onto them. And he's thinking really hard, and Tony Stark says, okay, bring everybody back as it was 5 years ago into the present. And he's like, oh, this is so hard to do, and he's got to get this just perfect, and at the same time the Infinity Stones are hurting him, so he's trying to snap his fingers, and his arm is like giving up. Like, think of lifting a really heavy weight and you can't quite pull it up, but you need to. So the weight of the Infinity Stones is affecting the Hulk, and he finally does snap his fingers. And just a surge of energy flashes right before everybody, and it destroys the iron gauntlet that they created. And because the Infinity Stones are that powerful, and it leaves Bruce Banner's arm incredibly scarred. But all of a sudden, Clint gets a phone call from his wife. And it's like, well, his wife had been dusted years ago from the decimation. So she's back. And apparently everybody just all of a sudden came back all at once because the snap worked. Bruce Banner brought everybody back. And I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole scene, and it's just weird to me. The whole idea of it is just weird. So the whole story kind of relegates behind these 6 all-powerful stones that nearly murder you if you try to use them. So everybody's back, everybody's come together, aside with some sacrifices. And when we flash forward, we realize that Thanos has found out about everybody getting the Infinity Stones, and just shortly after everybody's been snapped back into existence by the Hulk, the headquarters gets attacked. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 everything's firing, and we're in a lot of trouble. And then here comes Thanos back into the world, and all of a sudden, jump forward, there's a big fight. And now this time, everybody is involved in the fight against Thanos. Virtually every single person, minus the sacrifices. And it's just a mind-bogglingly amazing fight. So the 3 heavy hitters that we get to see fighting are Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, because they are like the pinnacle of the Avengers. And they get into this big fight. Now Thanos is no cupcake. He is extremely tough, and to that end, Thanos' own weapon is as strong as vibranium, if not stronger. We don't know what the heck this stuff is made of, but he's getting into a fight with them. And all of a sudden, Thor realizes that he's on the opposite end of his axe. Thanos manages to grab his axe while Thor's holding onto it and tries to push it into Thor's chest, as Thor did in Infinity War. And then all of a sudden, brace yourself, this was the most incredible moment of the Endgame movie, in my personal opinion, is when Thor was in trouble, his life was in danger, and all of a sudden, I'm going to jump back just a little bit. When they were achieving the Aether, when Rocket and Thor were back in the past, and when Thor had the chance to talk to his mother, Rocket retrieved the Aether, that was the Infinity Stone that they needed to get, and Thor, having a talk with his mother, who was depressed and upset, and his mother realizes that you're in trouble, but you fail sometimes in your life, but everybody does, and that doesn't make you any less of who you are. You're still a good person, blah, blah, blah. It's an emotional scene. Thor gets some closure by being able to talk to his mom one last time before her inevitable fate. And Thor had to know. He had to know. He reached out his arm, he closed his eyes, and then Rock's like, okay, a few seconds, and then whoosh, Mjolnir comes back. He's able to hold on to Mjolnir. He's like, I'm still worthy, because Odin's enchantment on Mjolnir was to make sure that nobody could wield the hammer without being worthy of the power of Thor. And he was still worthy in the hammer's mind, I guess. And it made him so happy. So he brought Mjolnir back into the present. All right, going back to the fight against Thanos. And Thanos has got Stormbreaker. He's trying to turn it on Thor and shove it into his chest, as Thor did back in Infinity War. And then all of a sudden, Mjolnir that's on the ground starts to float. And we're all thinking, what, is Thor trying to channel Mjolnir so he could get a nice strike back against Thanos? No. Captain America pulls Mjolnir off the ground and summons it to himself And all of a sudden, the entire theater roars as Captain America is wielding Mjolnir. Captain America has been deemed worthy by Mjolnir to channel the power of Thor, and everybody is whistling and clapping and just rooting for Captain America. And Thor just has this big beaming smile on his face. He's like, I knew it! And it was the most incredible moment. And I knew that Captain America was about to kick some major Thanos ass at that point. And Captain America knew exactly what to do with Mjolnir and just gave Thanos a pounding. Just beat him into the ground. Thanos was clearly hurt by Mjolnir, but eventually Thanos' power did eventually beat Captain America back over, but it was still an incredible moment for Captain America, a defining moment for such an amazing character. I was really happy to see that. But everybody who was a heavy hitter had the chance to smack Thanos up the head as hard as they could. The Scarlet Witch, she gave Thanos a run for his money. She could have easily kicked his ass if they had given her more time. I'm gonna mention the Hulk here for a minute. While he served as like an intellect and the person to bring the universe back together with the Infinity Stones, really didn't have as much screen time as what I think he could have had. I also don't think he had as much of an emotional response to Black Widow's sacrifice for the Soul Stone as we'd have liked to. I think, honestly, they could have had more time. But considering that this movie is 3 hours long, and I had to take a pee break in the middle of the movie. It was that long. But I didn't miss much, so I was still happy with it. If they were to add more storyline for anybody else, it could have been a freaking 4-hour movie for as much stuff as they could. It was already jam-packed with stuff and everything, and I don't think they could have put anything more in there without it being absolutely insanely long. So, overall story arc, Thanos eventually got bowled over, and they had the Infinity Gauntlet trying to be retrieved with all the stones and blah, 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 and eventually Thanos managed to get the Infinity Stones away from everybody else, and all of a sudden he grabs the gauntlet and he puts it on, and he's like, I am inevitable, and then he snaps and nothing happens. And this was during him fighting with Iron Man, and he's like, why isn't there anything happening? And he turns over the Infinity Gauntlet, there's no stones. And he's like, what the hell? And then here's Iron Man in the distance, all the Infinity Stones being merged into his Iron Man microparticles or whatever, nanotechnology. And Iron Man delivers the final blow, and he realizes that this is the ultimate sacrifice that he's willing to make to ensure that Thanos and his goons doesn't ever threaten the universe again. And with one last breath, I am Iron Man, and he snaps, uses the Infinity Stones. He doesn't just decimate Thanos' army, he gets rid of them all. Every last one dusted. And just a surge of power comes out of the Infinity Stones once again, and Thanos realizes his mission is over. He has failed. So he just sits and sulks, and he's done. Thanos is pretty much resigned to his fate, and eventually Thanos is dusted, and Iron Man has won the day, but not without great cost. Because shortly after that scene, we realize why a simple human being cannot wield the Infinity Stones. It burned Tony Stark and his entire arm up to half of his face, and he was just in tremendous pain and shock from using the Infinity Stones to wipe out Thanos' army. And the whole audience was like, oh, like they're really heart-struck from Iron Man just taking the full front of the Infinity Stones, trying to eliminate Thanos. And Pepper Potts, his wife, comes up to him and he says, it's all right, you can rest now. And Iron Man passes away right then and there. He's done the ultimate sacrifice to save the universe. It brought everybody back it's over, the fight is done, and the Infinity Stones have been used the final time. And then they cut away. They go back home where they have a funeral service for Iron Man. And I literally shed a tear during the scene. It was really sad. 11 years of movies, and Robert Downey Jr. has played a truly phenomenal role as Iron Man. He has done it expertly. I give a great amount of credit, a mountain's worth of credit, to Robert Downey Jr. for being an iconic cinematic legend. I loved it. And so his character was done, and everybody that he ever knew was there at the funeral as they sent him off in a bouquet of flowers. His original arc reactor that he made back in the first Iron Man movie, Proof Tony Has a Heart. It's sent off into the lake, and then you saw everybody, and then the kid that he met during Iron Man 2, I think it was growing up, and he was there for his funeral as well. And it was just a really kind of bittersweet scene. But Pepper Potts is still there. His daughter Morgan Stark was still there. And they're able to continue on the line. And then they cut to the next scene where Captain America has the job of returning the Infinity Stones to the correct points in time using the last of the pin particles and returning Mjolnir to its correct point in time. And they're like, okay, we'll bring you back in 5 seconds because, time passes differently. But he goes back in time to return all the stones and Mjolnir, and they're waiting 5 seconds for him to come back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he doesn't come back. They're like, well, what the heck? What's going on? And then they look out into a park bench next to the lake where there's an old man sitting there. And Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson, they walk out there and they look, say, who is that? Oh my God, it's Captain America. Except he's old. Apparently he went back to the 1940s to go spend time with his beloved. Carter, I think it was. And then he goes to Sam. He's got the shield, Captain America's shield. And they age Captain America really well in this scene. He looks like he's in his 80s, right? Someone who's pretty old. And he's like, go ahead, try it on. He's like passing off the torch, the symbol of Captain America off to his friend Sam. And people are wondering why he didn't pass it off to Bucky Barnes. Well, Bucky Barnes, who has been a childhood friend of his, had suffered a lot in his life. He could have had a lot of emotional trauma, so he felt that Falcon would have been the best fit for being Captain America, because he's still young, and now he's got experience and he's willing to go the extra mile, and maybe that's it. I don't know. So Endgame, there's a lot of things about the movie that I really like. A lot of things that I think were done well, but a couple things that were rushed or not really explained properly. And then there's a few things that I think fall short, and that's why I'm not going to give it as good of a rating as other Marvel movies that I've seen. In terms of action and drama, 10 out of 10, perfect. In terms of storyline and how it was handled, I'm going to give it a tentative 7 out of 10. I'm going to say that some things could have been done better. I think the Hulk's emotional connection to Black Widow could have been done better. I think Thor could have been done a little bit better. We knew that Thor was suffering from severe depression after thinking that he lost it all against Thanos. So I'm going to give him a pass. It's really hard. other parts of the storyline, they make no sense. Like, some things tie in a little too loosely for me. Now, the problem with time travel in general is, like, why can't you just go back and do those things at those periods of time? So they tried to explain it away, or exposition it away, or whatever, saying that, time travel doesn't work like that. The timeline still flows for you, regardless of what period of time that you go in. Events that happened will always happen, no matter from your perspective. It's like the speed of light is always the speed of light, no matter how you perceive it. So there's a little bit of science fiction, a little bit of science fact, a little bit of quantum mechanics, quantum theory, a lot of very confusing, convoluted stuff. But was it enjoyable? Hell yeah, it was. It was a very enjoyable movie. I'll watch it again. If I could go and get another ticket. I saw the 3D version. I should have just saw the 2D version, but the 3D version was really good. The only seat that was left in the theater for me was right up close in the front row. What is wrong with my English today? Right up close in the front row. And I was doing this the whole movie theater. Just tilting my head back, and I had a neck cramp when I was done. But anyway, my take on the movie is a little bit skewed. I think if I watch it again, some other parts will make sense to me. And it's got to be one of those kinds of movies where you need to watch it more than once to try to make sense out of it. And for what it's worth, hey, the Russo brothers are, I believe, they did a fantabulous job. And I can't wait for the next Marvel movies to come out. But this was definitely a pinnacle of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was a send-off to some really popular, really well-built characters, and Iron Man is no exception. Iron Man, we grew up with him. 11 years ago is when this all started. I was 26 years old when I first saw the original Iron Man. And, I grew up understanding his character and understanding Robert Downey Jr. as an actor. And then getting to know all the other characters and everything that they do and all the hard work that they put in. They had a huge cast for this movie, and they somehow balanced out everything really well. Not perfectly, but they did it really well to the point where it maintained my level of attention. I really enjoyed it. There's some things that could have used some ironing out, but I also think that with a 3-hour runtime, that there wasn't much other choice that they could do in terms of how much more they could squish into the movie. Because a lot of people are really upset that this thing was 3 hours long and no intermission. Well, I'm losing some light source here, so anyways, guys, as far as uploading videos to this channel, it's going to happen at random. It's going to happen when time is available, and sometimes I just have to feel really up to it. I've been trying to, do different things with my life. I've been trying to take different paths. Things are kind of a little bit rocky right now, a little bit of financial struggle, and I've got to do what I can to make things happen. As much as I wanted YouTube for me to be a fruitful money-making endeavor, I just realized that that's just not possible. Not as it stands right now. I don't have the time or the resources to do it. So other than that, I want to give a shout out to all my new subscribers. I've been watching you guys come in and seeing all of my older videos that you guys really truly like, and I appreciate it very much. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Blackfoot Ferret, who makes some outstanding theory videos that he does. He does an amazing job. So if you haven't seen him yet, go out and take a look. He does an amazing job, and I absolutely love his stuff. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I'm home. I'm going to go to sleep now and whatnot. And you guys have yourselves good night. Peace.